looks like Special Agents Michael said came into the server. I have a recorder that's talking about that. We have to talk this about like how the Arguer prototype version is thought and feeling on this game that revealed this got released to the public back into March 2023. And for my opinion, that's I haven't seen that second part of the Arguer, the how it been that Taito initially the development the basic ties and the sprite there, using the layers had the 2D sprites there, and impressive graphically the similar the red zone on Sega Genesis, and even though the enemy's ships and robot mech that's holding the pulse rifle that is modified is heavily modified, different than the first part. And these include the 8 stages of the total to the planning stage that as well is attested by the Japanese games players that with the works on the hardware system. And supposedly this fully functional as they kept their going to hardware. So sometimes they had the development stage and they didn't going to make it so far because that lack of the game's development and hard drive issue that as far. So that's what our gear been abandoned, scrapped, and put it shelved it to archive it into the storage. And this was, of course, it existed our gear. And then a few years later, the Taito, the developer revealed it got dumped it as released the prototype versions that people got played our gear. As with only single stage is only, but not even going further to fully develop this. Because of that, the game's development didn't make it. Middles that developed sometimes. That's the title games what was later said as redesigned to Raystorms back in August 1986. That's what was its development history. There's an unseen, unheard of it, and people got talk about heard of it our gear. And this game is overtly to the values, variously as elements, visuals, the backgrounds, and makes it impressive. And the graphic is made to the very good, excellent, visually. That the enemy's chips is heavily modified, but then reused for the first part, and the new story concept of games. And even though that this 3D background, the real-time zoom, the view looks impressive, and overall the prototype version is actually very good. That sounds very fantastic, and I usually play the Rayforce series, the trilogy, except one of those that are gear. And then this April, so I have now been sort of picking up I have to decide to rework the game's development, and it's supposed to have the unofficial revival media, and it's other platforms that are going to make this like independent short animated films. It's supposed to have the 12-minute, and I haven't watched that 9 short films back to 2005 that they've been made to the one person and small teams together, and I have a lot to watch that 1,000 times. And decidedly to the essence that it been shown materialized that our gear prototypes and the blue one that that if this titles they have been made to the designs which has with this similar that reflected it graphics that that's taken on from the games, so they detailed it there. It was made it up like a Japanese anime mecha style. So I would have to would have to say that we're gonna have to say that. So I am not being honest with Rayforce. I'm not gonna use any to the materialize. So I would have to say this. The Taito Japanese own it, for not me, as Taito as own it, and I just made it the unofficial is materials Rayforce Media, and it is actually made the independent short animation film, or like a independent games development, and not advances
bless me.
like produced or published by the Taito, and I'll have making up that's avoided in the copyright infringements, the materials would Taito would see it, and we don't getting has a big trouble. So I just want to make these unofficial short films instead about this. Like I have this 2D animations, the frame by frames that make this, make some smooth animation movement through like Richard Williams. Even it does like as half the frames, and then like Uncle Don Blues. Even it reflects a reference list of the as takes photos of both makers' models to the kit that have the drawings and sketches as is only been sketched, and digital scanning this, any of this like generated of the imagery that as reflects the drawing their illusions for the art visuals. And the workshops also gonna make this any the 3D buildings, the trees, like I always said, the vehicle tanks, enemy spaces, mech walker, as it tries to be attempts at the mech walkers and the bosses, and I've seen that our gear gameplay videos. And then space colorly does the circulates views of real time, the zoom into the spin around this the background, always the scenes, the foregrounds and clouds. So, and the boss chips, the design that the second part, and other than that the first part. So I would type it down that Rayforce 1.5 argue project is comparisons it to be the make these the concept of story of short animation films, and then the fully develop independent games the development projects. And there's this gonna be lots of I really haven't tried that with code programming and the design that was artistically the visual. So there's this got to be have to only use for the game engines like the GameMaker Studio. By the help of it to support the programs, ironically, the idealize that as a visualize the background, the visuals that makes it impressive. Then the Demon Star prototypes, and then Red Zones for Sega Genesis, as it's quite been looks pretty good. Says cool stuff there. Like a might that has almost looks like 2D/3D of view. The backgrounds coming across that space quality, our space. Even though that I would just try to be to write it down to story that needs